One shot, 3 targets. No scope. No second attempt. The bullet cracked through the air like dry lightning, struck the first steel plate dead center then, as if bending physics, ricocheted clean into the second, then the third. Every soldier on the range went silent. Not out of discipline, out of disbelief. The old woman stepped back from the firing line, eyes steady, hands still, no smile, no gloating. Someone whispered, stunned. That wasn't just a trick shot. That was training. From somewhere we weren't supposed to know existed. She didn't respond. She just picked up her rifle, the one wrapped in old cloth and tape, a relic from another time, and walked off the range without a word. Which city in the world are you watching this video from today? If this story intrigues you, please consider subscribing to hear more untold stories of extraordinary service, about the men and women who walk among us, never asking for the recognition they deserve. Because sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room is the one nobody noticed. Dawn breaks over a remote civilian shooting range, tucked behind a forgotten stretch of highway in southern Nevada. Dust hangs low over the ground, and the echo of early morning drills mixes with the dry whistle of desert wind. Most days, nothing unusual happens here. But today's going to be different. At 835 hours, a woman walked past the gate. No military ID, no fanfare. Gray hair, faded windbreaker, a rifle that looked like it belonged in a museum. She moved like someone who didn't need permission, not arrogant, just purposeful. 3 young recruits saw her first. One of them, Tuck, barely 20, snorted and elbowed the others. You see this? Looks like Grandma brought her grandpa's rifle to career day. The others laughed. They weren't cruel, just inexperienced. And inexperience always mistakes quiet for weakness. She didn't react, didn't even glance their way. Instead, she stepped to the line, unwrapped the old Springfield Monet from the cloth, opened the bolt, and checked it with the kind of care that told anyone watching she wasn't here to prove anything. Only one of them stopped laughing. Private Miles Danner, new to the unit, adjusted his glasses and stared. He didn't know what he was seeing, but he knew enough to recognize it wasn't normal. He leaned closer and whispered, almost to himself, "That rifle's not regulation, and that stance, that's not someone pretending to know what they're doing." She turned to the range officer, Sergeant Hal Bristow, and said quietly, "Just 1 round. That's all I need." He paused. Something about her voice made it impossible to say no, and that's where it began. 1 round, 1 moment, and a legend thought long gone stepped out of the shadows. The range stretched out before Herdry, unforgiving, silent. 3 steel targets stood in a staggered line at just over 300 meters. They weren't aligned. They weren't static. They'd been set up deliberately crooked-angled so no straight shot could clip more than one. It was a drill meant to frustrate even the advanced candidates. And that's why the laughter came so easily. "If she hits even one, I'll polish boots for a month." Tuck called out behind her, loud enough for the whole firing line to hear. A few others chuckled. Bristow crossed his arms and didn't say a word. Arden Cole said nothing. She lowered her cheek to the stock, just like it was 2006 again. Her breathing slowed, her shoulders loosened, not tensed. She adjusted her left elbow slightly to press into the table edge. Her finger rested not on the trigger but on the frame, just waiting. No optics, no laser rangefinder, just weathered iron sights and instinct born of repetition. A dry gust blew across the field. Arden didn't blink. She'd already calculated the angles. She took in one final breath, low, shallow, controlled, and then, crack. The shot broke the silence with a single clean echo. It struck the first steel plate dead center, slicing the air like it belonged to it. Then it ricocheted precisely at a calculated angle, deflecting with just enough force to skip off the second target's outer edge and redirect again. Clang, clang, clang. 3 notes, a rising chord. Impossible. The sound rolled back over the group like a slow wave. And suddenly, There was nothing. No laughter. No banter. Just the dry click of disbelief. Miles Danner was the first to whisper. That wasn't chance. That was designed. Bristow stepped forward, slowly. He didn't look at Arden right away. He looked downrange. 3 clean hits. 1 bullet. No ricochet damage to the target frames. Only someone who had studied that exact geometry and practiced it under pressure could have pulled that off. A few feet away, Tuck's mouth hung half open. He dropped the rag he was holding. "Did anyone else see that?" he muttered. Arden stood upright again, calm as ever. She didn't reload, didn't offer an explanation. She simply picked up her rifle, with the same quiet reverence you might use to fold a flag. "1 round," she said softly. "That's all I needed." Then she turned. She wasn't waiting for applause. She wasn't trying to prove a point. She was already done. Danner adjusted his glasses again, eyes locked on her every move. Something gnawed at him now, not just curiosity, but recognition. He turned to Bristow. "That shot, the angle. I've seen diagrams like that, in old ghost pattern manuals. Theoretical stuff. No one ever got it to work." Bristow didn't answer. His jaw was tight. From across the field, someone finally spoke, barely more than a breath. "Who is she?" No one replied. Because in that moment, everyone felt the same thing. They had just watched something real. Something old. Something the army never talked about, but never forgot. That night, Miles Danner couldn't sleep. While the others collapsed into their bunks laughing nervously, still trying to make sense of what they saw, Miles stayed up, hunched over a dusty terminal in the corner of the base library annex. There were no cameras on him. No one cared what the quiet kid with glasses did after lights out. He started with what he knew. 1 shot. 3 targets. 0 modern optics. Ricochet hits at that range weren't just rare, they were borderline theoretical. Even in elite circles, it was the kind of stunt shooters talked about, not actually attempted. Because the math was brutal. The margin for error, less than 1/10 of a degree. But she had done it. Calm. On command. So he dug. First, into open field sniper theory. Then restricted archives. Then unit histories long since buried. 2 hours in, something pinged a misfiled entry from a 2008 training curriculum for advanced Recon candidates. Ricochet theory. Pattern deflection fire. Ghost variant 17. Underneath it, a grainy black and white photo. A woman. Young. Late 20s. Hair pulled tight. Cold eyes. Springfield Monet resting on her shoulder. The caption below read, "Captain Arden Cole, 39th, Recon Precision Unit. Presumed Kia, Operation Vulture. Echo, 2006. Miles blinked. He leaned in, stared at the contours of the woman's face. The jawline, the arch of the brows, even the way she held the rifle. It wasn't just similar, it was her. The same woman who'd pulled the trigger this morning. He checked the timestamp again. 2006. No way. She's not supposed to be alive. He kept digging. The 39th Recon Precision Unit had only operated for 4 years. A black cell sniper group. Unofficial even by special operations standards. No public commendations. No confirmed service record. And then disappearance. Only 1 entry remained in the after-action logs. Unit deployed to Kandahar under extreme duress. Objective achieved. Casualty status. Classified. Captain Cole. Last seen during extraction under fire. That was it. No death certificate. No burial. Just 1 word in red. MIA. Miles sat back in the metal chair, heart pounding. She hadn't just been a shooter. She'd commanded the recon unit no one ever mentioned out loud. A legend. Erased. And now she was here. On his base. Firing 1 bullet, leaving no explanation. He whispered it to the dark room like a confession. She's Ghost Pattern 17. Back at the barracks, no one believed him. he told Sergeant Bristow the next morning, showed him the manual. Bristow skimmed it, slowly. His eyes moved over the photo, then back to Miles. That's an old story, Dana. Plenty of women served with distinction. Doesn't mean she's the one in the picture. But the shot, Miles insisted. The angles, the timing, she is the shot. Bristow handed the manual back without a word. But later that night, Bristow would go to his office alone, lock the door, and stare at that same photo for a long, long time. He recognized her too. The next morning, Bristow did something. He rarely did. He asked to see the range security footage. He didn't say why. Didn't even explain to the tech running the terminal. Just muttered something about fire pattern review and waved them off. The video came up. Static shot. Wide angle. No zoom. He watched as Arden Cole stepped into frame alone. Steady. Deliberate. He scrubbed the timeline until just before the shot. Then he watched again. Frame by frame. No optics, no scope, no digital assistance. Just her and those iron sights. She adjusted her footing. Breathed once. Then fired. The bullet followed the arc as cleanly as anything he'd ever seen, pinging off each of the 3 staggered targets in succession. No wild bounce, no overcorrection. Pure control. Bringing up the thermal overlay, he paused the image mid-shot. The heat signature showed 0 additional hardware. No assistive tech. No heat masking. Nothing. Just muscle memory, breath control, and geometry. He leaned back, eyes narrowed. That wasn't improvisation. That was a drilled technique. And there was only one unit known to have trained it. He walked to the archive room, the old one, where most of the paper files had either been digitized or forgotten. He knew what to look for. His father had mentioned it once, decades ago. A file nicknamed the one they kept in the dark drawer. And there it was. Folder. Operation Vulture. Echo. 2006. Stamped. Restricted 39. He opened it slowly, hands steady. Unit. 39th. Recon Precision. Ghost Pattern Group. Team Lead. Captain Cole. Arden. Deployment. Kandahar Province. High-risk incursion. Objective achieved under fire. Extraction incomplete. Then, a line at the bottom. Typed faintly, almost added as an afterthought. Operator declined formal commendation. Requested discharge and permanent anonymity. Bristow stared at it for a long moment. So it was real. She had made it out. She hadn't been buried. She hadn't been erased. She had chosen silence. He closed the folder and said aloud to the empty room, "She didn't vanish. She chose silence." 2 days later, Colonel Everett Langford stood outside his office, holding a printed message from Division Command. 1 sentence. Typed clean. No emotion. Ghost Pattern 17 confirmed. "She's real. Bring her back." Quietly. He stared at the paper a moment longer, then folded it once and slipped it into his breast pocket. He didn't question it. He'd seen too many things in this business to dismiss legends anymore. That afternoon, at precisely 1,600 hours, Arden Cole returned to Camp Bishop's Range. Same grey windbreaker. Same Springfield Monet, wrapped in cloth tape. Same silence. But this time the range was full. Every platoon, every drill instructor, Langford himself. Even Bristow stood off to the side, arms crossed but eyes steady. She stepped to the line. Didn't ask questions. Didn't acknowledge the crowd. Langford walked forward and spoke just loud enough for everyone to hear. 1 shot. No second takes. Observe. 3 new steel targets had been arranged, not just staggered, but moving. Rotating positions every 5 seconds. No one had ever hit all 3 in a single attempt. Not even the base's top-ranked marksman. But Arden didn't flinch. She took her position, adjusted for crosswind, waited. And then she fired. Crack. The first plate slammed backward. A split second later, the second Platinau rotating pinged clean. Then the third, just as it passed behind the first shadow, rang out with a metallic snap. 3 targets. 1 bullet. No time to recalculate. The range was dead, silent. Then someone, a corporal near the rear, breathed. That's physics. Breaking. No one corrected him. Arden stepped back. No smile, no bravado. She simply reached up and rolled back her sleeve. On her forearm, faded but unmistakable, 39. RP. Ghost Pattern 17. Black ink, aged silver at the edges. The unit that wasn't supposed to exist. The one wiped from formal records. The one everyone whispered about, but never believed was real. Langford looked at her, then at the soldiers, watching some with jaws slack, some with eyes wide, some blinking back, something they didn't yet understand. He nodded once. She nodded back. And that was all either of them said. Because some reputations don't need rebuilding. They only need to be seen once clearly and never doubted again. The crowd remained still. No one moved. No one spoke. Arden Cole stood there, the cloth-wrapped Monet still in her hands, the ghost pattern tattoo now fully visible on her forearm, catching the late afternoon light. Then, from the back of the assembled formation, an older man stepped forward slowly, carefully, cane in hand. His uniform was no longer standard issue, but his bearing was unmistakable. Retired General Silas Trammell, once commander of Special Reconnaissance Command West. Now just a name most of the recruits had heard mentioned once or twice in lectures they didn't pay attention to. But Bristow and Langford both recognized him instantly. The air shifted as he walked, the kind of reverence that came not from rank but regret. He stopped, 10 feet in front of Arden. His voice trembled not with age, but weight. Captain Cole, I failed you. I let silence bury your name. The recruits turned their heads. This wasn't protocol. This was something deeper. Trammell drew himself up as best he could, cane tucked against his side. Then he lifted his right hand and brought it to his brow. A formal, regulation salute. The line held. His hand did not shake. The field went dead quiet. For several long seconds, Arden said nothing. Then she stepped forward, just slightly, and nodded once. You did what the mission needed, she said, voice level. But I lived with what it cost. That was all. The kind of exchange that didn't require a speech. Only 2 people in that entire crowd truly understood it. But everyone else felt it. A young soldier near the front raised his hand hesitantly. Ma'am, why now? Arden looked at him. Not cold, not pitying, just remembering. Because I saw young men laugh at what they didn't understand, she said. And I remember being young just like that. The recruit lowered his hand, face red, but thoughtful. Langford stepped forward. He cleared his throat. Captain Cole, your presence here today has made something very clear to all of us. We would be honored if you would consider staying leading advanced training. Your methods, they could save lives. She looked at him, and for the first time that day, she actually smiled. Just a little. The techniques came from places I wouldn't wish on anyone. She paused. But if they can keep your soldiers breathing, then yes, I'll teach. She didn't take an office, didn't accept a title, didn't ask for a salary. Every Saturday morning, she showed up at Camp Bishop's South Range just after sunrise. The same grey windbreaker, the same Springfield wrapped in cloth. Always alone, always early. She never ran formal classes. She just waited near Target Station 3 until someone came up, rifle in hand, frustration written on their face. She'd watch them shoot, say nothing at first. Then gently she'd step beside them. Your shoulders too tight, she'd say. Slower on the exhale. Steadier on the squeeze. She never raised her voice, never interrupted a drill sergeant. She taught in the gaps, in the silences, in the places real learning happens. Most of the recruits didn't even know who she was, only that when she spoke, people listened. Bristow would nod at her in passing. Langford stopped, trying to make her official. He understood. She wasn't there to build a curriculum. She was there to pass along something that couldn't be written down. One Saturday, a soldier named Nolan asked her point blank, "Ma'am, is it true what they say about the canyon shot?" She looked at him, eyes steady. "What they say doesn't matter," she said. "What you believe, when you're behind the trigger, that's what matters." He nodded slowly, walked off without another word. By late fall, more than half the unit had improved their marksmanship scores by at least 20%. They all credited her, but she never let them say her name out loud. She never wanted to be ma'am. She just wanted them to leave the range better than they came. That was enough. And every time one of them hit a clean shot through wind, dust, and pressure, they knew. She had taught them more than marksmanship. She taught them discipline without ego, stillness without passivity, and respect without demand. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't leave a message, didn't hand over a binder, didn't give notice. One Saturday morning, she just didn't come. At first, no one thought much of it. Maybe she was late. Maybe something came up. But by noon, the bench behind Target 3, her bench, remained empty. The cloth tape that usually lay curled at its corner was gone. No boot prints. No scent of oil or powder. Just silence. That afternoon, Miles Danner walked out there alone. The range was quiet, windless, still. He sat down, right where she used to. Something caught his eye wedged under the slats of the bench. Folded, deliberate. A sheet of paper, aged at the edges. He pulled it free with careful fingers. No seal, no signature. Just 5 words, handwritten in neat, slanted script. If you don't know why you're pulling the trigger, don't. 39th Recon. Miles stared at it for a long time, then folded it back and placed it where it had been. He didn't tell anyone. Not yet. But by the end of the week, word had spread. She hadn't come back. And she wasn't going to. No one ever said the word died. There was no notice, no record, no obituary. Because some people don't exit. They just return to where they came from. And for someone like Arden Cole, maybe that meant slipping into the same silence she'd once chosen 20 years ago. 2 weeks later, Colonel Langford gathered the staff at the edge of the range. They brought out a new steel plaque. It wasn't flashy, just brushed aluminum, engraved letters, 4 bolts. It read, Arden Cole Training Complex. In honor of Ghost Pattern 17, for those who shoot not for glory, but for purpose. No ceremony, no ribbon cutting. Langford didn't speak, he just nodded once and walked away. From that day on, no one called it the South Range anymore. It was hers. New recruits came and went. Some didn't know the full story. But they all learned the same things. How to slow their breathing. How to listen to the wind. How to aim for reasons that couldn't be explained on a form. And every one of them passed through Target 3. The bench remained. Nobody touched the note. Until one day, years later, during a fall qualifying cycle, Miles Danner, now a staff sergeant, stood near a young cadet who was shaking with frustration. The kid had missed 6 shots in a row. Couldn't line up his elbow. Couldn't steady his trigger finger. Miles crouched beside him. He didn't adjust the rifle. Didn't move his hands. He just looked at him and said quietly, "She didn't teach us how to shoot. She taught us how not to forget." The kid blinked, swallowed, nodded, and on the 7th shove hit dead center. Arden Cole never asked to be remembered. But somehow, the lessons she left behind had a way of staying. In the breath between exhale and fire, in the silence before a shot, and in the calm of those who knew when not to pull the trigger. Because real legends don't need statues. They only need a bench, and a name that still gets spoken in quiet tones by those who learned what mattered most. In a world that often rewards noise and visibility, Arden Cole's story reminds us that true mastery doesn't ask to be seen, it simply is. She didn't seek credit, applause, or recognition. She gave what she had in silence, and in doing so, shaped a generation of soldiers who now carry her lessons forward. The most powerful people we meet may not raise their voices, but when they act, the room goes still. We all have someone like Arden in our lives, someone who showed up when it mattered, gave without asking, and then quietly stepped aside. If you've ever been taught by someone like that, thank them. And if you are someone like that, know this: even if your name isn't spoken out loud, your impact echoes. If this story moved you, we hope you'll subscribe to hear more untold stories of service, sacrifice, and silent strength. And before you go, may your aim be steady, your purpose clear, and your legacy quietly unforgettable. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself, and take care of each other.